Welcome to Business Talk here on businesstech.co.za. As always, I'm your host, Michael Avery. And today we're talking about a topic that's about as exciting as actuarial tables. But stay with me, because behind all those tables, premiums and probabilities, lies something that I think every working South African depends on, whether they know it or not: group life insurance. And it's the quiet safety net that hums in the background of your payslip. It protects families, it provides dignity to so many, and it reminds us that in the world of risk, life is actually a team sport. And joining me to make sense of it all and hopefully explain how insurers are keeping these benefits affordable in a world where inflation eats everything is Mareli Mans, head of FAW and GI products and pricing at Momentum Corporate. So Mareli, great to have you on. Let's just start with the basics. I mean, for those who are watching who may only see group life as a line item on their payslip, could you just unpack what group life insurance actually is and how it differs from individual life insurance?
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here. So yes, I'm obviously very excited to talk about group life insurance. So group life insurance is the cover that you get access to by being employed. Your employer typically stipulate that as part of your benefits. So they are compulsory in most instances. They would include items like group life, lump sum death cover, lump sum disability cover, and also importantly, often income protection cover. So that provides cover for you on a month-to-month basis should you become disabled and unable to perform your current job or a similar occupation. It would actually fund your income up to retirement. So really making a massive difference in the financial security of employed South Africans on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So now that we understand it, I mean, I guess the next logical question is it catching on? I mean, from Momentum's vantage point, how popular is group life cover in South Africa?
So the reality is for most South Africans, other than retail life funeral policies, the bulk of the life insurance cover that South Africans actually access is through the employer, whether they're aware of it or not. Most South Africans, the only life insurance they have in place is actually the cover they access through employment. So it really makes a massive difference in the realities of South Africans.
And we know, I think most South Africans, sadly, the majority have more than one funeral policy. So it's not a question of not being familiar with what insurance cover can do, but we have a lot of mis-selling. And, when we talk about financial inclusion, it's that safety net that very often when you're on the margin can ensure that life's unexpected knocks are not devastating. And so you actually deepen South Africa's financial inclusion if we can broaden access to these kinds of products. And it's a real passion point of mine. How do we do this? Because we know South Africa's workforce is aging. I think younger workers tend to job hop more than ever. How are these demographic changes influencing the pricing models for group life cover so that we can get more people covered at the end of the day?
I think the wonderful benefit of group life cover is the fact that it's often compulsory. So all employees get it as part of being employed. And that really allows us to offer rates that are very affordable. You don't have the same anti-selection problems. Everybody gets covered. If your cover is not excessively high, you typically don't even have to go for underwriting. And we know there's a big stigma for that in South Africa. A lot of people don't like going to the doctors and don't have access to underwriting. And they're also not necessarily getting the right advice. Advice is expensive. And that's why we see people buy a funeral policy. And the second policy is also a funeral policy, which is actually often relatively expensive when compared to affordable group insurance premiums, where you benefit from the cross-subsidization of being part of a group. The compulsory nature really keeps the premiums affordable. And that does offer us really comprehensive cover. And I think the other positive signs, positive trends that we are seeing with the shifts in people joining employment, you now get cover that is more customizable. So configurable cover that you can actually scale up depending on where you are in your life stage, right? If you're closer to retirement, you might not need the same amount of lump sum death cover because most of your debts are sorted out. But if you're starting out and you just have a young family, now with scalable group life cover, you can actually scale that up to meet your needs and customize it as you go. We also have cover that's now more portable. So on a lot of group insurance products, we offer conversion options, which means if I leave my employer, I don't have to leave my life cover behind. I can continue with a retail policy with no medical underwriting at that point, keeping your cover in place and making sure that there's no gaps in your cover going forward. So I think really positive signs, making sure that we keep everybody covered and the risk managed well.
Yeah, and I've experienced that when we had group cover at Classic FM before it went into business rescue. I took the medical benefits out of that group cover with me. Are employers realizing that this is no longer just a nice to have in a world where I think the one thing COVID showed us is, yes, you can work remotely, but I think it led to the great resignation. People decided to look elsewhere. Maybe they weren't happy where they were employed. And I think, for an employer, if you're going to differentiate yourself in this market, to have this kind of cover, to look after your employees with these kinds of benefits seems to me to be a bit of a no-brainer. Are employers realizing that?
So employers really see that as a key part of the employee value proposition, making sure they can attract the best talent with comprehensive set of benefits, and making sure that benefits is flexible also to the needs of that employer also helps you a lot, because not everybody, it's not a one size fits all, right? We all have different people that we've taken care of with different needs, and having that configurable cover is really important. And also the comprehensiveness of your package, right? If you've got a really young workforce, you would probably structure slightly different than an older workforce. So it's really important to make sure that it's structured for your employees. And looking at wellness and health and all of that together is really important. It makes a massive difference. And as you mentioned during COVID, I think that's really where insurance kind of stepped up to the plate. We didn't see one insurer buckling under the pressure of a massive pandemic and really made a difference in the realities of South Africa.
But that said, I mean, obviously, since COVID, the world of work has changed fundamentally. And I think more people are working remotely, maybe more hybrid. I'm seeing a lot more people going back into the office, but maybe 2 days a week, 3 days at home. Are insurers rethinking how you structure group life products? Does less time in the office, more time at home actually change the underlying risk profile?
It's a very interesting question. And I think there's been different dynamics that, like you mentioned, during COVID, a lot of people started working from home, and that impacted what we saw in disability claims, right? There were people now not sitting on the desk properly anymore, lying on the back with a laptop, and wonder what does that do to musculoskeletal issues. Also psych cases, right? People not having the support, being away from the office as positives, but it definitely has a dark side as well, with people feeling isolated. So we saw that during the COVID period. Post-COVID, we now have different dynamics, right? Some people might not be keen to get back to the office. We're seeing more and more return to work. It has positives. People now getting access to wellness and care again. But some people being stuck in traffic, now long commutes impacting other musculoskeletal issues that they might have had, that they were comfortable with dealing with at home, but now sitting in traffic for an hour and a half a day, those things keep kicking up again. And I don't think we were joking, maybe it's just seeing the manager face to face. That's also causing some side claims. But definitely seeing some interesting themes depending on where you look in the industries.
Let's stay with health, because, I mean, there was obviously a concern. I think during the COVID, they said that the second pandemic could be a mental health pandemic. And if you look at, I was chatting to the CEO of Netcare, Richard Friedland, about the rise in patient days for mental health issues in their CASO facilities. So, I mean, are you seeing that? What kind of health or lifestyle trends are currently posing the biggest challenges for group life pricing in South Africa?
So, according to the latest Stats SA survey, we've seen a 60%, almost 60% increase in non-communicable diseases, right, in the last 20 years. And in our data, we've also seen cancer and musculoskeletal and psychiatric claims really kicking up post-COVID. And I think, firstly, I think it's intuitive to the one sense. If you think about during COVID, people weren't getting access to the right care, right? You didn't go for your screening. So now and when we looked at the cancer claims during that side, everybody saw that. And we knew COVID didn't cure cancer. But now that wave is coming back, right, where people now getting diagnosed, and it's sometimes at later or more severe levels. Psychiatric claims have definitely also seen a pickup with people not necessarily getting the right support. And also, I think the economic and social environment in South Africa playing a big role with people's job security and the stress they're under, and impacting the psychiatric and mental claims that we see coming through. So definitely playing a role, and that's something we're keeping a close eye on. And where it's really important, early intervention, early detection, and working together as an employer with your wellness and insurer to make sure that you've got a whole structure in place. Because the quicker we can take action, the better the outcome for everybody involved.
Yeah, and I mean, that was always the risk of having employees working at home, because it's much easier to detect early when you can see John at the water cooler every day. You change, and you can detect that change in behavior. Much more difficult to do if you're working remotely. And I think when we isolate ourselves working remotely, it does naturally lead to a greater risk of mental health issues. We are social creatures at the end of the day. On the flip side, though, we do have technology. We've got all of these advancements in healthcare. Are there any that you're seeing that are helping insurers reduce risk and maybe potentially bring down costs as well, that might help with early detection or AI health screening or anything like that?
Well, there's lots of, I think, really positive signs that I'm very excited about. So the access to data and health information is now much more readily available. We've also seen in our surveys that members are a lot more comfortable with doing a digital health assessment. So we have better access to good quality information about our health. They can track it better. And that obviously helps us with early intervention and making sure that we put the right things in place. We do also see people being a bit more sedentary, right? Not necessarily getting the activity we need. And all these digital platforms helping people. I don't know, my watch yells at me often, not sleeping enough and not moving enough. So I think that definitely positive things that we have in our back pocket that can make a difference. Data and analytics so important for us in terms of risk management and seeing where the hotspots is, that we can take proactive steps. And also on the AI side and that medical innovation, we're seeing advances in terms of early screening. We can detect cancers much earlier, and also personalized healthcare, these designer drugs that can be more affordable because of automation and AI. So definitely some positives that can make a difference, specifically in South Africa, where access to healthcare is so expensive. So if things can become more affordable, it will definitely make a positive change. And then the GLP-1 drugs. So we know the Ozempics and the Mounjaros of the world, very, I think, controversial. We've all heard of Ozempic face, the negative side of it. But I mean, these diabetic drugs have a very positive impact on weight loss and managing diabetes. And if you think about the fact that we've got a massive diabetic and cardiac issue in South Africa, if we can have a significant impact on those key diseases, what could that mean for mortality and morbidity? So definitely some positive signs that I'm very excited about.
But I think, I love the fact that we can use these tools as well, to predict and prevent, because I'm a big believer in prevention is better than cure. And if you get early intervention as well, you can have much better outcomes. I'm like you, I monitor my steps. It's almost become too gamified for my own good. We got one of those for our dog, actually, where you could go and get one and make sure that your dog does enough steps. So don't get me started on the technology, but it's a really positive thing. If we just zoom out and we look at the economy at the moment, we know the economy's been in a tough spot for what feels like an eternity. There has been some recent relief. Interest rates are coming down. Inflation has really come down to the SARB's preferred 3% level. How does this broader economic climate affect insurers' ability to keep group life cover affordable and sustainable?
So what we've seen, you've mentioned it, is everybody in South Africa is under pressure, right? It's budgets, not just our budgets, but companies' budgets are also tight. And it really is that balancing act of making sure you've got the right cover in place for your specific profile of members and balancing that with your budget, right? You want to attract the best staff, so you need to have comprehensive benefits that speak to that specific profile, but it needs to come in the budget that the company's got available. So we really walk a path with our clients and build that relationship. What you mentioned, early detection, being really close to the ground and knowing what's happening, that can make a significant impact on the well-being of the staff and also actually keeping people productive, right? Having the right disability management and early detection programs in place, make sure that you keep your staff at the office, keep them productive, and that drives the cost down as well. So I think it is a win-win situation if you can build that relationship with your data analytics, your early intervention programs. And I think having that conversations regularly really makes a really positive impact on the outcome What we also find is giving people and the members actually access to information and digitally enabling them so that they can know what cover they have. They can do the underwriting digitally. They can submit it to beneficiaries digitally. We don't always think about, oh, it's great to have cover, but what's going to happen when you're not there? Have you made sure that you've actually got the beneficiary nominations in place? So all of those things we're driving with our data and a digital approach so that you can reach even the most isolated person. As long as they've got a smartphone, they can get all the information they need and actually interact in a digital way. That's a lot more cost effective and immediate, right?
Yeah, and it's what we've just come to expect. I think we've become so digitally native in the way we conduct our lives. You just look at the rise of 60/60, for example, and how many people don't go and do their grocery shopping really anymore. And we just, that's the way we become used to communicating with all of our service providers. And I think if we can use it positively, we can then nudge the right kind of behavior. And ultimately, that's what we want to do as well. Because sadly, it's not something that people kind of roll out of bed and they get excited about organizing in their lives, but it is so important. That said, it's a very competitive space, insurance, and especially when everyone's trying to balance affordability and quality. So let's talk about Momentum Corporate. How are you differentiating yourself in this environment? What's the kind of secret sauce in how you approach pricing and product design?
So for us, it really is a balancing act between risk management and sustainable long-term pricing. I've mentioned some of the nuances we've seen recently with dips in experience during COVID and upticks. You need to look through the cycle, right? We are here for the long run. We're here to make sure that benefits are sustainable. If you a short-term view might look good at now, right? It might seem like a nice, affordable rate, but for me, I'm here for the long run. I'm not here to next year come and tell you that there has now been a spike, that uptick was, or that drop was artificial, and that wave is coming. So we really are here for the long run. I mentioned our digital services. I think we found that makes the insurance a much more tangible for our members and for the employers. And then disability management. In the recent Swiss Re volume survey, we've again got the title as the largest provider of disability income benefits in the country. So we really know we are the experts in managing that disability risk. We've got a team of trained professionals. I'm an actuary. None of the technical things that they talk about is next level, and their understanding of each industry and what that specific nuance of that case is, and their likelihood to return to work and what we can do to change that is incredible. And that is the expertise that we provide to our clients to make sure that their staff is taken care of, that we work with them to get them productive and back to the office and being a contributing part of society again, right? And that's the best that you can do for anybody's self-worth, to make sure that they can be a productive member. So really excited about that. And I think the digital services that we are offering is also market leading compared to what there is available, specifically in group insurance. There's often something in the back end. It's something you see in your contract when you sign, but making that visible and that configurable nature of the cover really makes a difference to make sure that members get the right cover for them and they can take them with them. It's not just temporary. The moment if you go to your next employment, you can take the cover with you. So really excited about that.
Yeah, I think so many insurers talk about digital, but they don't execute. They don't deliver that tangible experience. And I think that is a key differentiator. Oh, a fascinating glimpse behind the premium, so to speak. Group life insurance might not grab the headlines like AI or crypto, but it's the kind of protection that I think keeps South African families afloat, especially when life throws you that curveball. So many thanks to you, Mareli Mans, Head of FAW and GI Products and Pricing at Momentum Corporate. And if today's conversation reminded you to check your benefit statement, you're welcome. You've been watching Business Talk on Business Tech.